Afternoon, everybody. This is Sports Politicking, Agree to Disagree. I'm your host today, Leonard Lynch Jr. With me today, I got Big Turner in here. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Turner.
And John Turner, Chesapeake, Virginia, from Newport News. You can get at me on Twitter. Everybody Loves John. Follow our group, Sports Politicking Presents Agree to Disagree on Facebook. Check us out.
All right, today we decided to go live to speak to y'all, pretty much debate and go back and forth, talk about the new QB tiers that came out today, the whole rankings. You know, they had the voting panel. This is the third time they had it going on this year. It consisted of 42 league insiders, the 10 general managers, 5 head coaches, 5 defensive coordinators, 8 personnel evaluators, and 7 position coaches and executives. So this is how they broke it down for tier. There's 5 different tiers, as I said. For tier 1, these are for the quarterbacks who can carry his team each week, and the team wins because of him. Tier 2 can carry a team sometimes, but not as consistently. Tier 3, legit starter, but needs heavy run game and defense to win. Tier 4, might not want this guy starting all 16 games. And Tier 5, do not think this guy should be starting. For Tier 1, it only had 3 guys. He had Tom Brady and Big Ben. I'm going to go ahead and let Turner go ahead and take it off and see what he has to say.
Yeah, when I first read it, my first thought was, okay, I could see why they made this list with those 3. Obviously, A-Rod really doesn't need much. One of the best arm talents the NFL has ever seen. Great mobility, great accuracy, great deep ball. It's not really much that you can add to that. As far as Brady, and I'll just put this out there, people have claimed that I'm not the biggest Brady fan in the world. So this is not, and it never comes from a place of hate. After thinking about it more, I didn't have him at a 1. I had him at a 2. I had Ben at a 1 still. Ben is in his prime. Yes, Ben does get hurt, but if I'm not mistaken, he didn't miss a game the past 2 seasons before missing 4 last year. So his durability has gotten better, but it's also gotten better as his offensive line has gotten better. So I agree with that. He has the best receiver in football in AB. Hard to go against that. My issue with Brady, and as I thought about it throughout my day, was if they're projecting going forward, who projects to hold their value to do those things that the tiers have them doing. I didn't have Brady as a 1. Reason being is because Brady looked bad without Gronk last year, and this is something that I've said for a while. He doesn't look the same without Gronk. And most quarterbacks, if you take their best wide out there, if you take their best target away, they don't look the same. You can look at A-Rod last year. But to me, just subjectively, and there are some numbers that show this, A-Rod still looked better. And this, I'm talking about from my eyes, A-Rod looked better than Brady did without Gronk. Like, Brady looked lost. Brady relies on a short passing game, get the ball out. But some of his throws were off last year, and Gronk in particular has a wide catching radius, which makes up for a lot of that. Brady's also much older, so it's difficult to say that he's going to carry this value over this year. I'm sure you feel a bit differently than I do on tier 1, but if I had to create my own tier 1 as far as projecting going forward, because if we're looking at it realistically, there was probably only, I would say Ben was tier 1 last year. Carson was tier 1 last year. Drew was tier 1 last year. To me, just me personally. But projecting going forward, I say Breeze is more likely to hold his value. So I will put him as a 1. I will put Ben as a 1. I will put Cam as a 1. And I will put Russ Wilson as a 1. And also A-Rod, obviously. So I will have 5 tier 1 if we're talking about last year and also projecting going forward.
Okay. I agree somewhat with what you had to say. From reading the article, it sounded like off of just going into this year, what they think, coming off of last year, going into this year. Based off of that, I don't think I agree with their tiers right now. People in the top tier, It was Rodgers and Ben. Brady, to me, I think going into last year, I would have had Brady hands down in tier 1. Without Gronk last year, that changed it for me. Although as the year went on, he got better. They got in the rhythm. You know, guys got back from injured reserve or from injury, and he looked better. But I think Gronk is what makes that thing go. Because of Brady anymore, I think he needs more around him, like he did earlier in his career. He needs that now. So for me, last year and projecting onto this year, I think Rodgers and Ben would be my only two in tier 1. I hear what you said about Breeze, but I don't tier 1 right now simply because I'm also calculating the fact of his actual team. As I don't think he can win by himself and carry the team by himself anymore like he could 3-4 years ago. So that's why I wouldn't have Drew Brees in my first tier. Carson, I don't have him in there simply because that team around him, I don't think if that team wasn't as good as it was, I don't think he'd be able to carry them. So for those two, that's why I wouldn't have them in there. But for Rodgers and Ben, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Those two right there, they deserve to be tier 1. They're the cream of the crop as it goes right now.
Yeah, and I don't think as far as Carson, Carson was my MVP last year. Yes, the team around him was ridiculous, but Carson made also some of the most difficult throws a quarterback is asked to make and completed them on a regular basis. He resuscitated your boy Larry. I would think just on that alone that you would have him. Honestly, I can see why he's not. And the rationale in the article actually, and for those who don't know, the article is insider. So if you don't have insider, it's paywalled, so you can't look at it. But for those, that's where we got it from. But as far as Carson, I could see it. The logic in the article was how bad he looked in the playoffs, and that was a testament to him not being able to hold up physically over the season. I'm not necessarily saying I agree with that, but I see that logic. He is an older quarterback. I could see him taking a step back, especially with some of the ridiculous throws that he had to make last year. I can't really see him being able to sustain that over the year as well. And Arians' offense, and we're both big fans of Bruce, but that offense requires the offensive line to protect for longer periods of time. Who's to say they're going to be able to do that this year? Carson's not really the most durable guy. He gets a few hits. That changes the outlook on it. Now, looking at tier 2, tier 2 had 12 quarterbacks in it. That's a lot to me. I kind of wish they would have broken it down differently. But for the tier 2, they had Cam, they had Drew, they had Russ Wilson, they had Luck, and I know you got something to say about Luck, so I'm gonna let you go on that in a few minutes. Rivers, they had Rivers, Eli, Carson, Romo, Flacco, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton, and that's it. So that's a lot of quarterbacks. I don't agree with that list, but I'm gonna let you. I know you're going in on my boy. So go ahead. Yeah. I'm gonna let you go ahead and have that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go in on this. This for me, I think I agree with you. They should have broke this down more. I think the talent is from tier 1 to tier 2. I think it's a big drop off. I do like that they only had 3 people in tier 1. Although I don't think Brady is tier 1. I also wouldn't put him in tier 2 with all these other 12 names as well. So for that fact, I understand them Brady being in tier 1. 12 guys up here, I do not agree with this at all. Now the criteria for tier 2 was can carry a team sometimes, but not as consistently. To have Eli in here, to have Andrew Luck in here, to have Matt Stafford in here with these other guys, they should not be in there. They're clearly not tier 2. Rivers, I'm on the fence with him. I think he can, but the last year or so, he hasn't been as good as he has been in the past. So I would probably take him out as well. For me, it would be Cam, it would be Breeze, it would be Russ, it would be Carson, Romo, and maybe Matt Ryan and Andy Dalton in there. Now, the reason why I have Dalton in there, to me, if he hadn't gotten hurt last year, I think he might have been creeping up on tier 1 last year, because besides Carson Palmer and Cam Newton last year, Andy Dalton was lighting it up. He was in the conversation for MVP for me, simply because he was lighting it up. Even though he has a stacked team as well, in my opinion, with the Bengals, he was lighting it up for what he's done previously. He was the MVP. I don't think he should be in tier 1, but he's probably the cream of the crop of the tier 2 right now, just based on our projections and what he's done last year. What he did last year. What he did last year was phenomenal. And by all accounts, he looks better, and people are expecting him to do more and be better this year. Just as a quarterback, his accuracy, because his accuracy has been a little off his entire career. But if he can improve that and his decision making, I think he can be tier 1 next year. I would have him in tier 2. I understand it simply because I don't think he can carry a team anymore, but he's definitely a top flight quarterback still. Not elite anymore, but he's still a top flight quarterback. Russell Wilson, his trajectory is off the roof. Seeing
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, but I can't see you. Okay.
Anyone watching right that the freaking power outage is going on?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
But where I was at? Romo. All right, so Romo, if you look at what he's done, he's not asked to carry the team single-handedly. He holds it down. Have him in tier 2. Flacco is Flacco. I've never thought he was that good. I think he had one playoffs to get him to win a Super Bowl with Baltimore, and that's been it. He's consistently good, but he's not the guy that you want leading your team. Like he's not a tier 2 type guy. He's definitely a tier 3. Boy, the Colts and Luck. I think Luck and Eli Manning, I think they're in tier 2 simply off of hype. Hype since his freshman year in college, since his freshman year in Stanford. That's why Luck is there, because he's been projected to be the top dog since college. So I think that's the only reason why he's up there. If you look at his numbers, his production of what he's actually done when he's on the field, never mind that he was hurt last year, but when he's on the field, he's not a top guy. He's not carrying the team by himself. Same thing. I think those two playoff runs that got them Super Bowls has cemented his place for his entire career. Never mind the fact that he's been the rest of his career for the rest of it. Those 2 playoff runs that put him over the top. That would be my tier 2. And Stafford, I can't believe they even put him up there. I don't know what they were thinking. And without Megatron, a Stafford without Megatron, I'd love to see this. Tape now, but I just don't see it.
But the way that they rationalized it made it even worse. They were saying that he could be better without Megatron because they know that he can't force it to him anymore. I thought that was the silliest thing ever. Okay. Excuse me.
He's better because he has to think now. No, that was the issue. That's why he was forcing it to Megatron, because he can't think.
Was forcing it because he couldn't do. Yeah, I thought that was the funniest thing ever. I literally laughed out loud at work when I saw that. I was like, "There's no way you're gonna be." I'm not on the Calvin Johnson as an automatic Hall of Famer train, but he was definitely a great player, and yeah, that was silly to me. Okay, so like I said, with my tiers, I would have moved Brady down 1. I would have moved Cam up 1. Funny thing you mentioned was that Cam's in tier 2, but he was your MVP. If he's an MVP, he would have been in tier 1, but I'm gonna leave that alone for another day. As far as I would have moved Russ up to tier 2, I can go with Rivers. I absolutely agree with that. Rivers, Carson, Romo, Dalton for sure, absolutely. Cam. I put Cam in 1. Okay, so I'll say this about Luck. For everyone who doesn't know, I am a Colts fan, been a Colts fan since 1996. He does carry the team in the sense that we're below average everywhere else but at the quarterback position. So a lot of the times what happens is we do have some good players. Vontae Davis specifically is a studded cornerback. Robert Mathis before the Achilles injury. We don't really have many stud individual players. T.Y. Hilton's okay. He's slightly above average to me. So in that sense, he does carry the team. But I think at some point we need to work on reducing his load because he doesn't really do it efficiently. It's all based on volume and his durability. And his durability was good until last year when he lacerated his kidney. Yeah, I was with you on Dalton. I was one of the ones who was preaching that Dalton was one of the main MVP candidates last year because he was balling. And yeah, his team was stacked. He did lose Marvin Jones and Sanu. Sanu's overrated, so whatever. But he still has AJ, who I'm a big fan of. I don't think he's the most physical guy, but I'm still a fan of his. And Tyler Eifert is one of my sleepers in fantasy. I guess not anymore because I just said it. But he still has 2 studs to work with, great offensive line. My biggest thing is that now he lost Hugh. And that's going to be the big loss. He was one of the most creative offensive play callers in the league, and he designed that offense around Dalton, get the ball out. He did have some stuff to play with Dalton's mobility. So, yeah, I definitely agree with them in Tier 2. Stafford has no business in Tier 2. I can't justify anything for that. Flacco, he just got hot and lucky against y'all in the playoffs. He has no business in anybody's Tier 2. I could see Carson there. Yeah, I see projected for it. I don't think he's going to be as good. Yeah, I think Tier 2 was the one that I could see the most. Like, I could really make justifications on that. Tier 3 is what really got me, and this was something that I looked at it because in Tier 3 it was Jameis, Alex Smith, Mariota, Kirk Cousins, Jay Cutler, Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, your boy, Tannehill, Fitzmagic, Tyrod, Brock, and Bradford. Now, I would have Brock as Tier 4. I would have Bradford as Tier 4. I would probably have Fitzmagic at Tier 4. Probably Jay Cutler too, but we would have 5 tiers because they didn't really do the tiers the way that we would do them. I would have Jay Cutler as 4, but we both love Tyrod. Teddy, that's more your boy than mine, but I see Tier 3. I think Jameis and Mariota are going to be 2s next year. Alex Smith is about a 3. Blake Bortles is a 3, and I read an article on Blake Bortles today, and they had a highlight of him just throwing to Allen Robinson, and they were all jump balls into either single or double coverage. I can't really get with him with his extreme accuracy issues. I can't. Accuracy.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean,
I definitely agree that.
Yeah, and again, he's young, so it could improve, but I mean, his accuracy issues are extreme. I don't know. He's a 3. But that could go south quickly for me.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I think it's just more hype with the Jaguars having a young squad around them and being able to have all these young guys out here. But if you actually watch the Jaguars games, which not a lot of people do, actually watch those games, he has spurts where he looks pretty good. But majority of his balls are just throw it up. When you got Hearns out there, when you got Robinson out there who are jumping up and catching everything, you don't have to do too much.
You don't have to. Exactly.
I think that's something that's left out because, people want to prop up the quarterbacks because this is a quarterback league. So it's, they're making all these grabs. It's obviously because the quarterback, he was a first rounder. Not these receivers that are making the plays because they're later round draft picks, but it's the quarterback. Like, no, look at these guys play. They're going up and getting the ball.
And they're getting the ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Blake Bortles had a 3.8 QBR in a game they won by 20 plus one game.
Yeah.
I mean,
And I think it's more that what they're trying to do is make that comparison with Blake and Derek Carr, because Carr is in the same type of boat where he has young receivers he's getting the ball to. Although Crabtree's not really that young anymore, and Carr is a lot more accurate than Bortles is to me. But they're in the same boat, whereas they're both young and they both have receivers who are going up to get the ball. But Carr is a lot more accurate, and I rely more on him than I would Blake Bortles. But I can see some of the hype.
I can, and Carr was in 3 too. I didn't mention him. He was one of the he was in 3, and I see that. Like, a lot of people aren't really sold on him. I could see it. Like, I'm not buying all the Oakland hype and all of that, but I do think Carr is a solid guy. I think, Amari and Crabtree, he has 2 technicians out at wide receiver. So that's definitely helping him out a lot. They run routes impeccably. Amari, I worry about the drops a little bit, but I don't necessarily think PFF, Pro Football Focus, had him at 17 last year, but I didn't look at anywhere else that had him with more than 9. So I think I'm going to cancel my subscription with them. Not because of that, but I mean, that's just an extreme outlier. I also think that, like you said, Carr, he can throw it deep, but he's more of a guy who's going to throw short, intermediate, and let those guys win it. Use their route running skills to win at the line. Yeah, I don't think we're really in much disagreement here. You know, I just think that
I don't like how they just it essentially what tier 3 looks like to me. They just pretty much threw everybody else in there, and that's not how it should be, because those guys like Jay Cutler, he's in what, his 10th, 11th year in the league. He's not that guy. He's not a tier 3 guy. I don't want him starting 16 games for me. If I had him on my team with the Broncos, and I was optimistic because, you know, he was a young guy, but now with all these years in, I don't want him. And Fitzpatrick, definitely, I don't know how they have Fitzpatrick in here when we've seen him. We've seen when he first came on the scene, it's like, okay, yeah, I can see him up there. But now we saw that. We saw what he is. He's someone who can get a team from it. He can fill in the gap. He's a great gap guy. He's a great tier 4 guy, because if I need someone to fill in the gap for a young guy, I wouldn't mind having him. But as we saw at the end of that last game of the season, to get the Jets into the playoffs, when they had a squad who might have been able to do something in the playoffs, he throws 5 interceptions. That's Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I mean, and he had 2 really good wide receivers too. So I really feel like they elevated him more than, you know, Fitzmagic elevated them. I think you're being a bit too hard on Jay. Yes, his inconsistency is maddening. I could see tier 3 for him. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. Like, if you put him in tier 4, like I'm not gonna argue about it, honestly. You know, I can't put. We didn't really talk about Kirk Cousins much. I feel like with the Redskins fans in our group, they talk about him enough. I'll say this, and this is some shade a little bit. I feel like if you put Kirk Cousins in the New England Patriots offense, I don't think there would be much of a drop-off.
Oh, whoa! I don't know about all that. Reason
I say that is because Brady's obviously better. Brady's a legend. Kirk Cousins is not. So for anybody watching, I'm not comparing him to Brady. Let's be clear, because if you send stuff to my Twitter, we're gonna have a problem. Now,
it don't matter. It don't matter. They're gonna send it.
Which is fine, because they're gonna get it. Anyway, my thing is this: they're similar quarterbacks, right? Brady is elite at reading defenses and making decisions. So they're among the best ever at that. Can't take that away from him. But with the constructs of the offense, getting the ball out quick, why couldn't Kirk do that?
Because he doesn't get the ball out quick enough.
Well, he was good last year.
He doesn't decide.
When he was good last year, he did.
When he started playing these bad teams at the end of the year is when he was good. That's getting those quick passes out against bad defenses. Brady, the reason why I don't agree with that is because Brady is doing it against better teams, against better defenses. Because although the Jets and Bills aren't better teams, their defenses are pretty good. So he's doing it against better defenses. Maybe not better teams, but he doesn't go against their offenses. Kirk Cousins, I'd have him in tier 4 simply because we saw him for 16 games, and half of those he was terrible. So I wouldn't want him starting 16 games for me as my starter. Now, after this year, if he does the same thing, then maybe I can see him in tier 3. But he was terrible for the first half of the season. And then once they started switching up the offense to cater to him more, then they improved. And he has so much talent around him who can take the top off the ball, take the top off of defense easily.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. I don't completely buy the narrative that Kirk was just Blaine Gabbert against good defenses, and then he turned into Peyton Manning against bad defenses. I think it's always somewhere in between. I did see some really good games from him. And one thing I will point out is that he really cut down on his turnovers. And that was always a bugaboo for him. He cut down on his turnovers. I don't know how much of that was because of dropped interceptions. I'd have to look that up. There are some games he did look really good. There were 9 games where he threw no picks, and I don't think he threw more than 2 in any game at all. So you got to give him credit on that part. Yes, there's an element of luck to turnovers, unless you're A-Rod or Brady, who historically avoid turnovers. But you got to give him credit for avoiding turnovers. So we can start there. I would definitely keep him at a 3 with the possibility to move up to 2. I'm surprised you didn't talk about your boy Teddy, though.
Oh, I was about to.
Okay.
I think he's rightly where he should be, tier 3, which is, you got to have a good defense and a strong running game, which is what he has, and he had that, and he won his division. All these guys that are in tier 3 right now, this is the only other person who, with the same type of game plan, agree with that. I think Teddy should be up there. Now, I know your knock on him is, I think it was arm strength. His arm isn't strong enough. But my thing is, he is Brady-esque in where his turnovers, and he's going to get the ball out quickly because the old school quarterback where you want your playmakers to make plays. Get the ball to your playmakers. When Stephon Diggs took off last year, you get the ball to him early, let him make the play. You got Adrian Peterson. You don't have to throw the ball 35 times a game when you got Adrian Peterson back there. When they had Brett Favre, who just went into the Hall of Fame, they didn't throw it 35 times a game because they had Adrian Peterson. When you have a back like that, you don't throw it 35 times a game. You give him the ball and let him lead you. So I think he does what he needs to do. He doesn't throw it 35 times a game, and he doesn't have to, because that's not what Zimmerman wants him to do. And I think he does what his job is to do. He does really well. So that's why I would have him in tier 3. Game, he needs that defense right now.
Looking at some of his numbers from last year, TD percentage was 3.1. Pick percentage went down on an entire percent from 3 to 2, which is really good. His adjusted yards per attempt went up by 0.3, and that is a lot. Even though it's 0.3, it's still a lot. Yards per game went down. His QBR went up to 62.71. Got sacked more times, though, 44, and that I don't like that with this slight frame. If I was him, I would do whatever I can to try to get the ball out quicker, because I'm afraid every time he gets hit. I hate to say that, but I'm afraid.
He's frail. He's frail.
And I don't even like to use that word or anything. I'm afraid when he gets hit. Tannehill is somebody who I was a big fan of coming out of Texas A&M. Converted wide receiver to quarterback. His deep ball is terrible. Like his deep ball is actively hindering him, and he's not good enough in other areas to make up for it. Like if you're a bad deep ball thrower like Tom Brady, like his short passing game is elite. Like Tannehill's not good enough in that area to make up for it. Like his deep ball is terrible. Like that just goes to show you can have a strong arm and just be a terrible deep ball thrower. Like I'm not saying Tannehill has a Jay Cutler-esque gun, but he has a strong arm. He's terrible at throwing the deep ball. It makes no sense at all to be that bad throwing the deep ball. And that's actively hindered him from being a better quarterback than what he is.
I agree with that. I've never been a fan of Tannehill simply because he went to A&M. For those who don't know, I'm a UT Longhorn fan through and through. And Tannehill to me, belief for the Aggies when they were going downhill with their quarterback situation, and he looked decent because he played high school quarterback. So you're like, okay, then his college coach drafts him in the NFL. So I mean, that's why he's a quarterback. I think people have been trying to up into why Tannehill is a good quarterback simply because he has a strong arm. People give you a lot more chances when you have a strong arm. Strong arm is why Jay Cutler is still a starter in this league. If you have a strong arm, you have a chance. So Tannehill's strong arm has helped him, but I don't understand, like you said, how you can have such a strong arm and be so bad at throwing the ball deep.
He's terrible.
How is that even? It makes no sense.
He's terrible.
He shouldn't be a starter anymore. He shouldn't.
I wouldn't go that far. I can't go that far, man. Like I've seen him make some throws before where I was like, yo, okay, word, I like that. but then he throws the ball deep, and then it's like, yo, where's the ball going? Like I don't know, man.
I changed that. He shouldn't be the unequivocal starter. He should be challenged going into training camp. He shouldn't be like Rodgers and Ben and Brady and Breeze, where they're the day you write that in stone. They're the starter day one. Tannehill should be competing for his job. Like these guys in tier 3, unless they got less than 2 years in, being as day one starters. Like these guys, if you're in tier 3, you should be on the uptick, not coming down. And he isn't. Like they got Sam Bradford in tier 3.
Yeah, that's
Bradford.
awful.
How is
that's awful. Yeah, that's awful.
He's no way. When's the last time he's played 16 games?
Yeah,
he should awful. Not. He should be tier 4. Brock Osweiler, who I like, I still like him. I wanted to see what he had. He shouldn't be tier 3 because we didn't see enough from him. Yeah. Like he has an arm. He's mobile. State quarterback. He's really mobile. So, and I watched him a little bit when we went to the training camp this past week for the Houston Texans, and he has a nice arm. I'll give him that, but I haven't seen enough of him to put him in tier 3. And I think that's my main issue with these tier 2 and tier 3 guys is I feel like they just bundled a bunch of young guys in tier 3 and a bunch of older guys in tier 2 because this is what they should be, and I disagree with that.
But see, here's the problem though. Because football coaches have always sold themselves on hype and talent and arm strength. I think you do need a certain amount of arm strength to be a great NFL quarterback, unless you have a system. Like, we haven't talked about Tyrod. Full disclosure, Tyrod went to Hampton High School, and I lived in Newport News. So he's always going to have my support. Setting that aside, though, I love him. Love him. Absolutely love him. He made some of the best throws of the season last year with just a flick of the wrist. That ball traveling 50 yards right in the bucket in the corner of the end zone. I mean, he does have some things to work on for sure. And he's small too, so I worry about durability with him. But his mobility and that arm, my goodness, that's the kind of arm that you get seduced on right there, especially that deep ball. Yeah, I honestly fear that Rex is going to ruin him. I'm terrified of it because Rex is notoriously wants to play it close to the vest with those quarterbacks, and I don't think you can do that. Let Tyrod, his deep ball accuracy is on point. He needs to work on his intermediate to short accuracy, but just let him go, man. Like, you need to see what you got in him. Like, he sat for what, 3-4 years in Baltimore. Like, at some point, you gotta let him go, man. See what he can do.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I love Tyrod Taylor. Like, full disclosure as well. I used to live in Chesapeake. I went to Indian River, so I used to follow Virginia Tech. Well, I still do because I love Frank Beamer, even though he's retired now. But I am aware of him, and I know how good he is. And I liked him coming out. I was really upset. I thought he was at least a second-round draft pick because he had everything. To me, he was Russell Wilson. He had everything except he was short. If he was taller, then he would have got drafted higher. And that I feel like that hurt him. And then once he went to a perfect organization with the Ravens, and then you got Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs talking him up, saying this dude needs to play. He can ball. They're seeing him every day in practice. He's going against that defense every day. So he got to against one of the greatest defenses, one of the greatest linebackers, and they saw it. And then all he needed was a chance, and that was my thing coming out. All he needed was a chance, show what he can do. And before the season started, people were like, well, why you got Tyrod Taylor? He's a good backup. He's a mobile guy. He's a runner. And he's like, no, he can throw. He can sit in the pocket and throw. And he showed that. And I feel like he went to the perfect team in Buffalo, maybe not the perfect coach, because like you said with Rex Ryan, I don't trust him with quarterbacks. But what it seems like is he's been pretty hands-off with the offense. And that offense, I think, is perfectly catered for Tyrod because with LaShawn McCoy, now you got Reggie Bush, Sammy Watkins, if he can stay on the field. that, which is, it's hard to say with anyone. But if that offense is healthy, that can be one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL simply because of the speed.
My problem, though, is that Sammy's not really a deep guy. He can get deep, but he's more of a yak guy in the mold of T.O. So that would require Tyrod to make more accurate throws between the hashes and intermediate, and that's not really his strength yet. Some of the deep balls he hit last year was to Marcus Goodwin, I think, Robert Woods. A few of them were to Sammy, but Sammy's the best receiver on that team, and I think that they got to get him more involved in the offense. He has to be healthy, of course. I think a good tight end will help him as well,
Well, they got Charles Clay. He's pretty good. Like he's pretty good.
I think he's more of an H-back, though.
Yeah, they do a little bit of everything with him.
They do.
And I agree with you. Sammy Watkins, for as fast as he is, he's not a real great.
Yeah, he's never really been a deep. Yeah, he's never really been a deep ball guy. He's more of a technician who just so happens to be fast, which is good. But yeah, he's not really been a deep guy. Okay, we done talked about tier 3, tier 4. I don't even know. Like, it's sad to talk about it because if you're a 49er fan and you have insider, how can you look at this and have hope for your team? Because both of your quarterbacks are on tier 4 with Cap and Blaine Gabbert. And then you're a Broncos fan. You got Sanchez there. The Browns are preaching all this hope. RG is there. And then the Rams have Case Keenum. And they didn't have a quarterback that was on the list prior to that. So their best quarterback is a tier 4 guy. I mean, it's not really much to say here. I will highlight RG, and I'll just say it's sad to see how far he's fallen. One of the best rookie seasons in recent memory, and now he's a tier 4. Some of that's self-inflicted. Some of that's self-inflicted. Other is Shanahan and in the mind game Shanahan likes to play. Kaepernick is really sad. That just goes to show the impact of coaching and team strength around a quarterback, because Cap looked tough when Harbaugh and everything was clicking, but then once the team deteriorated around him, Cap deteriorated too. I don't know. It's not really much we can say about this group.
All of these guys here are pretty much make a comeback, it seems. Except Case Keenum. I don't even know why they put him up here. I don't think anyone believes he's the starter for that team, but whatever.
Who's their other quarterback? I don't even know.
They just drafted.
Oh, that's right. They got Goff.
They got Jeff Goff.
They got Goff. Okay.
Case Keenum, then I don't know what to tell you. The quarterback is all they got to do is hand it off anyway. But that's hard. It's hard for me. I put an asterisk next to RG simply because we haven't seen him hoping that he can get back to form, a new environment, where he feels wanted. Like you said, a lot of the stuff that happened to me, I feel like it was more 50-50. Anyone that knows me, heard me talk about it, I pushed actually on Mike Shanahan and not getting that correct. A lot of the blame also goes to Dan Snyder, who enabled RG3. Like he was a great quarterback, but you enabled him too much. You can't let him think he's bigger than the team, bigger than the coach. You can't have that from a young quarterback. But I feel like if he can get back, if you can't bring him back, I feel like he might be done. For the perspective of other coaches and other GMs and other owners around the league. Mark Sanchez, for my quarterback, it is what it is. If I'm being optimistic simply because he's the quarterback of my team, but if he can act like he did his rookie and sophomore year, we should be okay. We don't need a savior. We just need someone not to turn it over. If we could win with your boy Peyton last year, playing like the worst quarterback in the league, we can win with Sanchez.
I mean, yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, it's not really much to say about him. But back to Sanchez and Peyton. what really helped y'all in the playoffs was just that Peyton didn't turn the ball over that much. I think he only he had 2 interceptions in the playoffs. I don't know if he fumbled if the defense recovered it. I don't really recall. I do know he had 2 picks, one against Carolina and one against Pittsburgh. Yeah, I mean,
what was really big though was his mind. Like I didn't like them benching Brock for Peyton, but his ability to read the offense or read the defense and put him in the right play, that's what really helped. So we didn't really need him to throw, and his cutting down on turnovers was huge. But yeah, I agree with you there.
Yeah,
there's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think with Brock though, Brock clearly had the arm strength, but he doesn't have the requisite touch. Seems like every pass he throws is hard. Like I don't know. Maybe I could be missing something. I know he has a very strong arm, so I'll give him that. But it seems like he didn't throw with the requisite amount of touch on his passes. I don't know. Just for me, looking at this quarterback list, last year was a bad year for quarterbacks overall for me. Like Peyton was dead. Brady was almost dead without Gronk. A-Rod, listen, like there's some, just from the games that I've watched of him in publications, Football Outsider, Sean Fahey, he does like a comprehensive quarterback study, and he actually posts on Twitter about the types of throws. So he measures them based on the throws that they make to the wide receivers, independent of the wide receivers themselves. And it looked like A-Rod was still himself, but those numbers, like I just saw in an article that said A-Rod threw 200 or more of his passes last year, 1 yard or fewer past the line of scrimmage. That's disturbing for me. Like I don't know. Like that could be a decline there. Like he's not supposed to do that without. I mean, even without Jordy, he's a great. Like that's unacceptable to me.
But you also have to realize he lost both tackles last year too. So you have to factor that in as well. The offensive line already wasn't that good, and then you lose both your starting tackles. That's going to be a decline. You got to get it off quicker. So while that does, it doesn't, for me, it's disturbing, but it doesn't indicate a stark decline, because you got to factor in everything that went around him, and he was still pretty good. Like It wasn't a off the charts year like it typically is for quarterbacks. I don't know if it was more of a factor of quarterback play or defensive getting better or coverages getting better, because we got more athletic cornerbacks and safeties coming in now. So I think it's a factor of all, but for me, the quarterback play last year wasn't what it's been the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at total QBR, Carson was the only person above 80. There were 6 above 70. Ben, Drew, Russell, Dalton, and Kurt, 5 above 70. And everybody else was 67 or below, starting with Tyrod. It just seemed like quarterbacking was down last year. And once the NFL caught up that A-Rod had no legitimate weapons that could gain separation, it made it hard for him to run the offense the way that he normally wanted to run it.
Right. And then with Cobb going down as well, I mean, it's only so much you can lose and still be. But he was still able to produce. He still was able to produce. So I give him that. And talking about my boy Teddy, I forgot. Battle in the playoffs. If Blake
he did.
If Blake hits that field goal, he was going to be taking on Cam Newton. So I mean, Teddy,
yeah.
If he's asked to, I watched him at Louisville, so I know you don't watch college as much. You not really a big fan of college, but I watched him at Louisville simply because I love Charlie Strong. So he can produce. He does what he's asked to do. If you need him to throw it, he'll throw it. If you need him to hand it off, he'll hand it off.
He played very well in that game. I will give him that, and it was outdoors. So I was worried about his arm strength, which is never good for a young 20-year-old quarterback to hear about arm strength and the elements. But He did play well. I'll give him that. And yes, if his field goal kicker hits that, I guess that's the folly of judging QBs based on wins and losses. Because considering the defense in the moment, Bridgewater played pretty well, but his quarterback just missed a chippy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like I like Teddy. I just don't see a star there. And in the NFL, you don't have to be a star. You can win with the right team around him. But just looking individually at the quarterback himself, it's difficult for me to say star. You know, more or less the team has to be right around him.
I agree. I could agree with that.
Tell North Turner stop running them options and bootlegs for him. That would help for sure.
He's not a running quarterback.
He's
mobile enough to get away, but not someone you want running every single play.
He's not. No, he's not. Stop doing that just because he's black. Stop it. Okay, ran over.
and then really to go off what you were just saying about stars is after Cam Newton and Russell Wilson, once Brady and Rodgers and Ben are gone, they're all, 30 plus now. Who else is there?
As far as quarterbacks,
stars. I think Jameis is going to be that dude.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about him. I love Jameis.
Jameis is going to be that dude.
And he's a guy for me. I hate intangibles. You know I hate intangibles. I hate it. You can't measure it. You can't see it. Whatever. If you're not in the locker room with him, you don't know what his intangibles are. But there are a few athletes that, to me, I can feel it. Like Kevin Garnett, I can feel his intangibles. Jameis Winston, for some reason, it's like I feel it with him. I don't know why. I love Jameis. I feel like, I feel like he's going to be a star. I feel like they need to cater that offense differently. Get Vincent Jackson's slow ass out of there. And stop having him go deep every single play. Like, yes, there's a big listen, I'm all about going deep. That's why I love Bruce Arians. But Jameis, not saying he can't throw the deep ball, but you got to mix it up, especially if you don't have the offensive line to protect that long. It literally takes Vincent Jackson 4 seconds to get down the field. What quarterback is going to have 4 seconds on a regular basis to get down the field? Nah. He needs a guy.
Mike Evans ain't too much.
Yeah, Mike Evans isn't really fast either, but Mike Evans is younger. He's faster than Vincent Jackson, but we might be faster than Vincent Jackson. Yeah.
True.
Mariota, I'm a fan of his too. I honestly didn't realize he was that big until last year. He's big. He's
you gotta watch college, man. I'm telling you.
I mean,
Mariota, I was a fan of him. I think people were trying to stay away from him simply because that Oregon offense. But if you actually watched him, he can play. And I knew that coming in. He can play. He can throw. He can sit in the pocket and throw. He's not your typical Oregon quarterback who rely. He's not your typical guys who just run. He can throw from the pocket. So I could see him becoming a star. Last year was real rocky for him though. So I had to see more. But besides those three, Cam, Russ, and Jameis, I don't see anybody who I can see right now. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a star. I didn't put Luck in there because I don't have Luck up there as a star. I think he'll be really good. Star.
I think Luck can be a star. I mean, but at some point, I feel like that's going to be contingent upon us building around him better so that he doesn't have to do so much. Dalton's not really young, but do you count him?
No, okay. I don't count him. I have him with Luck. I think they'll both be really good, but I don't see them as a star.
Okay. Last thing before we go, since we was talking about stars, you buying Deshaun Watson as an NFL quarterback star?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Have you seen him?
Have you
seen him?
I have watched a little bit. I have watched a little bit. I like him, but one of the difficulties that I have, like, separating him from the talent around him, because he's a senior now? He's a
junior. He's going to be a junior.
So So he played with Sammy. No, he wasn't even a quarterback then. Boyd was a quarterback then.
He didn't have them. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have that talent what you're thinking with Sammy, Hopkins, Ellington, CJ Spiller. He didn't play with all of them.
Okay.
He's the truth. Personally, I feel like even though I'm not a big Alabama guy, I can't stand Alabama. I haven't liked Alabama since Colt McCoy got knocked out the national championship and they frauded their way to a title. But whatever. But who can slaughter the Alabama defense like he ran through them and threw all over them like that? I think he's going to be good. And it wasn't just his running ability. Like people will get on him. Oh, he can run. Yeah, he can run, but he can throw from the pocket, accurate. That's what gets me. He's gonna be that dude. The dude can ball. I'm really high on him. He's gonna be that guy. Whoever gets him, unless it's maybe Cleveland, because Cleveland is gonna be trash regardless who the quarterback is.
Not with Hugh there though. I would trust Hugh.
That's true.
I would trust Hugh to get him right over Jay Gruden if Washington somehow falters. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That I forgot he was there, but he's going to be the truth. But yeah, it's just there's not that many stars. I think in about 5 years we'll look back on this era of quarterbacks who are leaving, and we'll look at it as people were looking at that era with Aikman and Young and Montana and Elway and Marino. Like we'll look back on it like, damn, this is one of the golden ages because the quarterback play in this last 20 years has been amazing, especially with the rule changes. Even though I hate the rule changes, I'm a defensive guy. I love seeing defense. You say you don't want to see 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but I love that. I love seeing that. But I will admit this quarterback play this last generation has been amazing. And I probably will miss it then. Right now, I can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're on the polar opposite we're polar opposites on that. Yeah, I don't want to see Eddie George type offenses where he gets lauded for 3 yards of carry. And he's a great running back. He don't catch nothing out the backfield now. Now, I want to see passes down the field. I want to see wide receivers making spectacular catches. I have respect for running backs for sure. Absolutely. Gurley, Le'Veon Bell is one of my favorites. I'm not as big on Adrian Peterson as Mostar because he's too boom or bust and he doesn't really catch out of the backfield. But I absolutely got to respect what he's done in the league and his physical talent. I'm just all for an air it out type of game. That's just me. And it's nothing wrong with, what you feel or what I feel. I just think that I just think that that's better for – I just think it's better football, honestly.
I can see that. I can understand that. Well, that wraps it up what we have today. The first of presumably many AJT and LRL debates. Fireworks weren't flying like some people from SP are used to seeing, but we'll get y'all those sooner or later. But once again, hit us up. Always watch us. We're coming at you live on Sundays. Agree to disagree. Hit us up on Twitter at Sports Politicking. Hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, at Lynch Jr. You got anything to say?
Thank you all for watching, and we appreciate you.